The ship was a coffin of silent metal, and his cabin within it was the deepest, most secluded part of the tomb. He had chosen it for that reason. After a lifetime of noise, of crowds, of the crushing pressure of human expectation, he had volunteered for the longest, loneliest mapping mission the agency offered. 10 years in cryogenic sleep, broken only by brief, solitary periods of wakefulness to check systems before plunging back into dreamless suspension. His name was on the manifest, but he rarely thought of it anymore. He was the sleeper. That was enough. His final cycle was not initiated by the gentle chimes of the ship's computer. It was a violent, grating shudder that ripped him from the cold embrace of suspension. Alarms, silent for a decade, screamed in the red-lit dark. He spilled from his pod, muscles aching with the ghost of cold, and stumbled to the viewport. The starfield was wrong. Familiar constellations were twisted out of shape, and there, filling the portside view, was a planet of impossible violet and cobalt, ringed by a delicate silver belt that glimmered with artificial lights. His ship was caught, held fast in a beam of pearlescent energy emanating from a vast, organic-looking station that orbited the world. He had no time to process it. The ship groaned as a foreign interface clamped onto the airlock. With a hiss of equalizing pressure, the door slid open. They entered. They were tall, slender, with chitinous plates of deep indigo and eyes like pools of molten silver. They moved with a silent, insectile grace. He stood, barefoot on the cold deck, a thin thermal suit his only covering, and raised his empty hands. The leader tilted its head, a scanning beam washing over him from a crystalline device. It chirped and clicked to its companions. Then, without ceremony, they took him. He was led, not to a cell, but to a chamber of astonishing beauty. The walls were living wood, curved and smooth, pulsing with a soft internal light. The air was warm and carried a scent like rain on dry soil and blooming night flowers. They cleansed him with beams of harmless light, then presented him with a simple silken garment. They were not gentle, but they were not cruel. They were efficient. He was an object of curiosity, a specimen being prepared. For what, he dreaded to imagine. He was taken to the heart of the station, a great domed chamber open to the violet sky. 1,000 of the indigo beings stood in silent rows, their silver eyes fixed on a central dais. There, upon a throne of woven living vines and polished stone, sat the queen. He understood her title instinctively. Her form was similar to her people's, but magnified, perfected. Her chitin was the color of a nebula, shifting from deep violet to cobalt. A delicate crown of bioluminescent tendrils framed her face. Her presence was not one of threat, but of immense, calm authority. Her molten gaze fell upon him, and he felt laid bare, not just physically, but to the core of his quiet, weary soul. The lead guard clicked and buzzed. A translator device on the Queen's throne emitted sounds in his language, the voice a serene, genderless chime. The vessel was adrift in a prescribed zone. A single life form found. A human. From the third expansion wave. The Queen's eyes never left him. She raised a long, elegant hand, and a holographic display sprung to life above the dais. It showed his ship's logs, his mission parameters, his personal file, his name, his history, his psychological profile selected for high tolerance of isolation and low social drive. She saw his chosen exile. He slept. The translated voice of the Queen echoed for the assembly. He sought the quiet dark between stars. She stood, descending the dais steps. The crowd remained utterly still. She stopped before him, her height forcing him to look up. He expected a probe, a painful scan. Instead, she simply looked, and in her silver eyes he saw not a conqueror's calculation, but a profound, weary loneliness that mirrored his own. "My people are the veil," the translator chimed softly, "for him alone." We are a chorus. Our minds touch in silent song. Our queen is the conductor, the heart of the harmony. She paused, and for the first time, he saw something flicker in that regal calm. A deep, ancient pain. Our last queen, my mother, has joined the eternal song. The chorus is silent. I hear only echoes. She turned from him, addressing her people again, the translator projecting. A successor must be chosen. The crown must find a new bearer. It seeks not the loudest voice, but the quietest mind. A mind that can hold the silence without breaking. A mind that chooses seclusion not out of fear, but out of peace. She turned back to him. The scans of your vessel, of yourself, revealed it. In all the reaches we have scanned, your mind is the stillest pool. It is not empty. It is tranquil. He finally found his voice, rough from disuse. I don't understand. Chosen for what? The crown of harmony does not command. It receives. It listens to the song of every veil and weaves it into one. The burden is the silence beneath the song. It is a vast, heavy quiet. A mind that craves noise shatters under it. Your mind has already made its home in such a place. He stared, comprehension dawning like a cold star. They were not conquerors. They were a people on the brink of dissolution, their collective soul mute. And their solution, their desperate hope, was him. A hermit from earth. I am not one of you, he whispered. The crown does not see species. It sees consciousness. You will sleep again, but not alone. You will hold the silence for us, and in that silence, our song will return. Protest died in his throat. He saw not an alien queen imposing her will, but a being shouldering a terrible, lonely duty, offering him one just as vast, but for which he was, perversely, uniquely suited. His whole life had been a retreat from the cacophony of humanity. Here was a purpose for that retreat. A sacred silence. He nodded, once. The ceremony was not in the great chamber, but in a smaller, private room deep within the living station. The crown rested on a pedestal. It was not metal or jewel, but a lattice of pure, solidified light, delicate as a snowflake and complex as a neural network. The queen stood beside him. The union is not of rule, but of resonance. My mind will be the bridge, the first note to guide the chorus back to yours. You will not be alone in the quiet. He understood then the true meaning of chosen by the alien queen. It was not selection. It was partnership, a joining of solitudes to end a collective silence. He knelt, as instructed. The queen lifted the crown. It was weightless. As it settled upon his brow, there was no pain. There was a cessation. The noise of his own thoughts, the low hum of human anxiety and memory, vanished. He floated in a perfect, dark, silent void. It was the seclusion of his cabin, amplified to infinity. It was peace. Then, a single, clear, beautiful tone pierced the void. Her tone. The queen's consciousness, a melody of strength, duty, and deep loneliness, touched his stillness. And from that connection, from that first note meeting the receptive silence, other notes began to flow. Faint at first, distant, like stars winking into existence. The minds of the veil, timid, disconnected, lost. They brushed against the quiet pool of his mind, sensed the anchoring presence of their queen's melody entwined with his stillness, and began to harmonize. He did not hear their thoughts. He felt their essences. The artisan's focus, the scholar's curiosity, the guardian's vigilance. 1,000, then 10,000, then millions of individual notes, each unique, all flowing into a complex, glorious song that resonated within the silent space he held. He was the vessel. The queen was the conductor. Together, they were the crucible for the chorus he saw. Through the weft of the song, the history of the Veil, a species of profound empathy. Their telepathic harmony, a blessing that had now become their existential threat. He felt the panic of their silence, the cold fear of permanent disconnection. And he felt, pouring into the song now, a wave of awe, of gratitude, of a profound, confused love for the strange, quiet being from the small world who held their shattered symphony together. Time lost meaning. He was asleep, yet more awake than ever. He was alone, yet intimately connected to a civilization. The silence he held was no longer empty. It was full of music. In the physical world, the Veil people witnessed a miracle. Their new queen stood beside the seated human, her hand on his shoulder. The crown upon his head blazed with gentle light. And from every veil in the station, then across the planet below, a sigh of psychic relief was exhaled. The silence was broken. The song, tentative and new, but unmistakably theirs, had returned. It was different. It had a new quality, a foundational call, a resilient quiet at its heart that it had never known before. He slept. He slept in the heart of the alien station, on a world he never meant to find, a crown of light upon his head. He slept, and his dreams were not his own. They were dreams of a violet sky, of songs sung in silver light, of a connection deeper than language. He slept, chosen not for war or power or politics, but for the profound human capacity to endure solitude. And in that seclusion, he became the silent keystone of an alien empire, the quiet human who, by simply being at peace with himself, taught a galaxy how to sing again. The queen never left his side. She was the bridge, the interpreter of the song, the ruler in the world of light and matter. And he was the anchor in the deep, silent sea of consciousness. In his seclusion, he was found. In his waking sleep, he was more alive than any human had ever been. He was the sleeper, and he was home.